All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into this short but really powerful story. It's all about something you might see every day, a simple observation at a bus stop involving a single seat, and it gets you thinking about all the silent choices we're constantly making. So before we really get into it, I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever given up your own comfort just to avoid a conflict? Chosen the path of least resistance, even if it was inconvenient? Just hold that thought. It's going to be important.
Okay, so the story we're digging into is called The Man Who Stood Where Others Could Sit. Just the title alone, right? It kind of pulls you in. It makes you ask, what's the deal here? What's the story behind this simple but kind of weird situation?
All right, let's jump right into our first section, the gatekeeper's throne. The whole story kicks off with a totally normal, everyday routine. But that's the thing, isn't it? It's always in these small, quiet moments that you find the biggest insights into, well, how we all tick.
So picture this. The narrator's day begins just like millions of other people's, waiting for the bus. The scene is super ordinary, totally familiar. There's just this one small concrete slab that's the only seat at the stop. It's a tiny little comfort, but you know how much that can mean on some days.
And every single morning, there he is, the same guy, a constant, silent presence. The narrator mentions he's an older man, maybe late 50s, early 60s. And that immediately makes us think certain things, right? Our brains just automatically jump to ideas about respect or, giving way to your elders.
But here's where it gets weird. This is the big puzzle. He's not sitting down. And he's not just standing near the seat, he's standing right in front of it. Basically, he's blocking it, making it completely impossible for anyone else to use.
So, of course, your first thought is, okay, maybe it's an accident. You try to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he has no idea he's blocking it. Or, hey, maybe his legs are bothering him and it's actually easier for him to stand. It makes sense, right? A totally rational explanation.
But then you see it again the next day, and the day after that. The same guy, the same spot, the same action, and that's when you realize, oh, this isn't an accident. This is a choice. He's choosing to do this, and suddenly the whole thing gets way more fascinating.
And this quote from the story just hits the nail on the head. A gatekeeper of a throne no one asked for. I mean, wow. He's basically made himself the guardian of this little concrete bench. Calling it a throne is perfect because it takes this super simple thing and loads it up with all this unspoken power and meaning.
And what's really wild is how everyone else reacts. It's like this unwritten rule just pops into existence. People show up, they glance at the seat, they glance at the man, and they just stand. Nobody says a word. It's like a whole social contract gets signed by everyone, completely in silence. It's fascinating.
Okay, so that brings us to our next part, the unspoken tension. Because things can't just stay the same forever. Something always has to challenge the system. And in this case, the challenge isn't some big dramatic confrontation. It's something we've all felt, just pure, simple exhaustion.
So one morning, the narrator is just completely wiped out, body aching. And this changes everything. Suddenly, they're not just a passive observer anymore. Their own body is screaming for a break. And that seat, well, it's not just a piece of concrete anymore. It's become something they desperately need.
And this really breaks down the conflict perfectly, doesn't it? You've got the narrator who is exhausted, aching, just begging for a place to sit. And then you have the obstacle, this man, just standing there with a totally unreadable expression blocking the way. He's not being mean or aggressive, but his presence is like a brick wall.
Man, this line from the story just gets me. The unspoken tension sat between us like the empty seat itself. That is so good. It's like the tension is so real you could almost reach out and touch it. It's a thing, a physical presence, sitting right there on the seat that's at the center of it all. You can just feel how thick the air is.
So this brings us to the big moment, right? The climax of this little bus stop drama. How is this all going to end? Is there going to be a big confrontation or something else entirely?
And what happens is so simple, but so heavy. The narrator looks at the seat, then looks at the man. The man looks back. And in that one moment, that one look, it feels like a whole conversation happens without a single word. But in the end, the narrator makes a choice. They don't say anything, they just step aside and stand too. They join the silent group. They basically surrender.
So the moment passes. The standoff is over. But the story? The story's far from finished. Because now comes the really important part, the reflection. On the bus ride home, the narrator is just replaying that whole scene in their head, trying to figure it all out. Not just what happened, but why it happened. Why did they make that choice?
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the story. It takes this one little thing that happened at a bus stop and connects it to something so much bigger, something we all experience. Why do we so often give up our own comfort, supposedly out of respect, even when it feels like we're disrespecting ourselves in the process? We do this all the time, don't we? We avoid making a fuss, we don't rock the boat, even if it means we're quietly unhappy.
Then the narrator starts thinking about the man again. What was his deal? What was he even guarding? Was it really just about the seat? Or was it something deeper? Maybe he was guarding his pride, or some sense of control over his little corner of the world. Or, and this is an interesting thought, maybe he was unintentionally teaching everyone a lesson without even knowing it.
And this is the conclusion the narrator comes to. It's this idea of duality. On one hand, their silence was a surrender. They gave up, they didn't get the seat. But on the other hand, in that surrender, there was also a kind of peace. The peace of avoiding a fight, of just letting things be, of keeping the unspoken harmony of the bus stop intact.
And really, that's the final thought this story leaves us with. It's a tough question, with no easy answer. When you choose to be silent, when you choose not to fight for something, is that weakness, or is it a form of wisdom? Is it surrender, or is it peace? And maybe, just maybe, the real answer is that sometimes it's a little bit of both.